Just playing the organ while yeah, I'm interested. I'm sure you're aware.
I'm like, no, he's gonna wear it every day till he outgrows
Good morning. Good morning. My name is Mo. I am the president of the fellowship this year. Come wherever you are, holding various beliefs, whatever your skin color, whatever your age or gender identity, whatever your abilities, whomever you love. You are welcome at the Unitarian Universalist Fellowship of Statesboro. You are welcome in this, our religious home. I extend a warm welcome in this cold weather to our visitors and guests. If you would like, we would invite you to take a moment now to introduce yourself. But I think we're all welcome. For the month of January, half of our offering that is not designated as a pledge will be shared with our technology fund. So thank you for sharing your resources in our offertory later in the service. Now I'll invite you to join with me in reciting our congregational affirmation.
Love is the spirit of this fellowship, and service is its prayer. This is our great covenant, to dwell together in peace, to seek the truth in love, and to help one another.
Our worship leader this morning is Sherry.
Thank you, Mo. Good morning. Thank you for braving the weather and the climate. Not turned on. They need to be turned on so it records well. Is that right? Now we're on. Thank you. Yeah, come in. Please have a seat. Thank you for braving the local weather and the scary national climate that's going on to come and be together this morning. I'm looking forward to our service, which will be mostly led by our own Beth, and hearing what she has to share with us. But we begin, as always, our worship service with the lighting of the chalice. The chalice is a symbol of our religious heritage. And I will light it and ask you to say the words with me, and then Mo will sound a note, and we will rise and sing together. Rise up on flame.
This is our chalice of love and light, uniting us all by day and night. Rise up, O flame, by thy light glory, show to us beauty, vision, and joy. Rise up, O flame, by thy light glory, show to us beauty, vision, and joy.
Thank you. And while you're standing, let's honor the light within by greeting one another. Hello.
Good morning. Oh, she's out
It looks like Milledgeville is fine, but they already canceled classes for Monday.
hope you want us to get next week. What else can I say? Because what it is, we'll get
Oh.
it'll be all right. Yeah, I know, right?
So Kiki is reminding me to be recorded, so you can try to wave at the camera to anybody who didn't bring the phone, or is able to be here. Raise your hand with us. And now is the time, the children know. Come on, Laura. It's time for the story from all ages, and Miss Beth is going to share a story with us this morning.
Hey, you guys. So I'm gonna need 5 people all together at some point. We've got 3 so far. Is there anybody else who wants to come hear the story and help out? We'll see if anybody else joins us. That's we may have 3 groups. Okay, my dears. No, it's okay if she doesn't want to. It's okay. She'll hear us from back there. Okay. All right. So today we are going to hear a story about a person who lived about 1,500 years ago in Ireland, and her name was Brigid. And there are lots of stories about Brigid. In the Catholic Church, she's Saint Brigid. And the stories we have about when she was a child were about how friendly and helpful she was to people who weren't doing very well. So we have a story that once she saw someone who did not have enough to eat, and so she went into her mother's storeroom and gave that person every last bit of her mother's butter. And her mom was not so happy about that, but Brigid wanted to be kind. And the story goes that she prayed and God returned a full store of butter into the pantry. And then there's a second story about Brigid that she saw people who did not have enough to eat. And so when she was left alone at home, she gave away all of her father's possessions because she wanted to help them. And then there's another story about how she was traveling with her father and saw someone who needed something, and she gave away his sword that had jewels on it because she wanted to be so kind. Now this was a different time and place, right, where people weren't necessarily so nice. And so her dad said, I've had enough, and he was going to take her and leave her at somebody else's house, at the king's house. But the king heard that she had given away all of these things to be helpful and loving. And so he said, no, you can come live with me and you can be free. We're so happy to have you. Okay, but there's a story of magic about Brigid that is a famous story in Ireland too. She's actually one of the 3 patron saints of Ireland. Have you guys heard of St. Patrick and like St. Patrick's Day? So he's one of the patron saints of Ireland, and St. Brigid is a second one. Okay, and this story is about Brigid's green cloak. So Elena has agreed to wear our cloak here. So here's Brigid's green cloak. Okay, can I wrap this around you? Is that cool? Yeah, it'll be warm. That's all right, that's good. Yeah, okay. So the story goes that Brigid, she was born, we think, around 451, and this happened in 480. So she was, quick math, about 29 years old. And she wanted to build a monastery. And that was going to be the first monastery in Ireland where men and women could live together. You guys know what a monastery is? Oh, we don't have any of those around us here. So it's a place where people go to live just so they can study what matters most to them and be helpful to the people around them, okay? So she wanted to start this monastery, but she needed some land. She needed some money. So she went to the king of Leinster and she said, I really want to build this monastery, and we have found the perfect piece of land on your property. It's right next to a forest, and that's really good because we can go and gather firewood, because in the year 500, you gotta have a lot of wood to cook and build fires, right? And have some light. And we can get berries from the forest, and it's close to a stream where we can get clear water. We'll be able to help so many people. King, can you please give us this piece of land? We're not asking for much, just a little area. And the king of Leinster is really greedy. And he laughed at her and he said, "You don't get to be rich and powerful like me by giving things away for free." So the story goes, Brigid had an idea. And she closed her eyes. She made a wish. And she got this idea and she said to the king, "King Leinster, would you be willing to give me a piece of land just as big as my cloak?" And he looked at this little cloak she had on, and he was like, "Ha ha, that's ridiculous, sure. Like 3 feet by 3 feet, you can have that." So everybody stand up with me. And so Brigid turned to her 4 friends who were there with her, and she said, okay, just a second. She said to everybody, "Okay, grab a corner of the cloak." So I have ribbon tied around the corners here. You guys see the 4 corners? They're over on this side of the lane. Can everybody get a corner with a ribbon on it? Alex, you want to grab one of those ribbons? And Abby, can you come over here and grab a ribbon? Okay. Do you want to grab a ribbon too? Okay. There we go. Okay. There should be at least one of yours too.
Oh, I have that.
Okay, there we go. Okay. And she said, "Okay, friends, everybody to one direction of the compass. Start walking." And they all walked. Walk as far as you can. Spread out as far as you can. And that's the miracle of St. Brigid's cloak. They just kept walking and walking and walking. And her cloak stretched for acres and acres. And the king of there we go. We got Cora. Yay! Yeah. And what do you think the king of Leinster said? He was like, "Oh, okay." And he fell to his knees and he said, "Brigid, call your friends back. Yes, you can have as much land as you want." And the story goes, he turned into a very generous king and helped them build the monastery. And that's the story of St. Brigid's cloak. Oh, yay! Okay, you guys, are we ready to do the affirmation? Yes. You guys line up here. Okay. All right, everybody. We are Unitarian Universalist, people of open minds, loving hearts, and helping hands. I know, if you guys will stand and make a bridge. To be fully present. Okay, hello. So that was the story of St. Brigid. And what we're going to do today is I will share a little information about who we think is the original goddess Brigid from Celtic mythology and how that turned into St. Brigid. And we'll talk about the holiday that is coming up, that is St. Brigid's feast day and the holiday of Imbolc. I'll share a little bit about the Wheel of the Year for context, but the big portion of our time I hope we will use at the end in a ritual to celebrate Imbolc, ourselves. So, hello, good morning. Let me flip ahead. So we'll start by, let's talk about the calendar. So why are we talking about Imbolc right now? Because the feast day of St. Brigid is celebrated on February 1st, so we're coming up on it this week. And the holiday of Imbolc is traditionally celebrated also on February 1st. And then on February 2nd, on the Christian calendar, there's also the holiday of Candlemas, or Candlemas, like Christmas, but Candlemas, that is directly tied to St. Brigid's feast day as well. So it's that time of year. And all three of these, in one way or another, are about welcoming spring. This transition from the end of winter into the beginning of spring. And fundamentally, what probably most of us really need today, it's a holiday, all of them are holidays about the returning light and the hope. Knowing that the hard, difficult times of winter will not last forever, and the sun is coming back and the light is coming back, and there will be a new day. So I think we can all use some hope, especially after the news yesterday, right? Okay, so let's start by talking about the Wheel of the Year. This will just take a minute, but just to give you some context. So I know how much to share. Let's do a show of hands, not to call anybody out, but so I know how much or how little detail to share. How many people know the Earth-based pagan Wheel of the Year so well that you could be up here talking about it instead of me? How many people have heard of it? Spent a little time with it. Okay. And how many people have no idea what I'm talking about? Okay. All right. I won't take too long. I did not want to risk bringing a slideshow and not being able to figure out the technology, so I drew a Wheel of the Year for you. So if you have heard of this these days in our world, oh, Sherry needs a picture of the Wheel of the Year. It's probably in the context of neo-pagan practices, but you'll find as we talk about it, that this idea of celebrating at certain points in relation to how much light and warmth we have in our particular region of the earth, we could perhaps claim is universal, because we find this through so many cultures and so many historical periods and so many religions. And I have been using the holidays on the Wheel of the Year for several years now in my own practice, and what I love about it is the way it helps me to pay attention to what is happening with the earth and the world outside of me, right? Like 8 times on the calendar checking in with, oh yeah, like in midsummer, okay, we're in full bloom now. Or in fall, all right, pulling the energy back in, getting ready to hibernate. In winter, the magic of the darkness. And in spring, this spirit of rebirth and hope and dreaming. So you don't have to have any particular religious belief system to celebrate these holidays or pay attention to it. And like I said, it helps me feel in connection to the earth around me, in connection to my body, the way that our bodies are tied to those cycles of the earth. But it also makes me feel connected to our ancestors and the history of people and really the whole living community on the planet, too, because the animals and the plants experience this as well. Okay, so real quick, when I say the Wheel of the Year, we're talking about 8 holidays that, you understand from science class, astronomy. So the big axis in the middle here are winter solstice, the darkest, longest night of the year, and summer solstice at the top, the longest day of the year. Now, when we live here in South Georgia, it's not that big of a deal. It's not that big of a difference. How many people have lived where the difference between light and dark is radically different? Yeah, right? I checked. And here in Statesboro, the difference in terms of how much light we get between the longest day of summer and the shortest day of winter is 4 hours. That's significant for your body when you think about it, right? 4 hours is a lot, but it just changes a little each day so we don't notice. But I checked in Nuremberg, where my in-laws live. I was like, yeah, remember in winter there, the sun coming up at like 8 a.m. and going down at 3:30. It was like that when I lived in Massachusetts too. And so the difference up farther north in Nuremberg was my example, between the longest day and the shortest day was 8 hours of difference. And that is a huge chunk of time for our bodies to go through. So of course, the way we experience the seasons totally varies by our hemisphere on the planet, by the particular climate we are in, but still all of us around the planet register this is how much light and heat we're getting. Okay, so we've got summer solstice and winter solstice, and then across, I'm sure you can tell, we've got spring equinox, which is that equal middle point, where the amount of light and dark is approximately even, varies a little bit here and there by day to day, but it's good enough here. And then we've got fall equinox at the other end, again, where we go back to even amounts of light and dark. And then what you might be less familiar with are what we call the cross-quarter days, these other 4 holidays. So I'm going to spin it around in order. We're going to end here on Imbolc. So let's start with spring equinox. Now, we know that humans for millennia have been celebrating these holidays before what we have as recorded history, because we find structures that still exist, built in stone or carved out of stone, that are lined up so that the sun will do magical things at some points in this calendar, right? There's a Neolithic site in Ireland where on Imbolc and Samhain, so where we are right now, and Halloween, the light lines up exactly right. And I'm sure you've seen these places. Stonehenge does the same thing with other holidays. There's a pyramid in South America where on a certain point in the year, the sun makes it look like a snake is crawling up the steps of the pyramid. So humans have been marking these days for millennia. Okay. And you'll see how they are worked into so many different religious traditions, right? Spring equinox is often associated with Easter on the Christian calendar too. In the pagan world, this holiday is called Ostara, coming from an ancient German goddess. Who knows how you pronounce her name? It looks kind of like Easter or Istra. Then we get around to Beltane, which is the middle point between spring equinox and summer solstice. Beltane is usually celebrated as May Day. Most of you guys know I'm married to a German, and so in every German village for May Day, there's a May Day pole, just like in Reverend Jane's backyard with the labyrinth, right? There's a maypole with decorations and festivals. Then we get to summer solstice, and around June 20th, 21st. Then the next 3 holidays I just adore. These are understood in today's neo-pagan calendar as the 3 harvests. So the first harvest is usually celebrated around August 1st. And on the Christian calendar, this is known as Lammas, Lammas, which is an abbreviation of loaf mass. Because in the northern, western world, this is when the first wheat is ready to be harvested. And so it's a holiday for baking bread. And then we get to fall equinox, also called Maven. That happens in mid-September. And then we get to, you see the pumpkins. I'm trying to make a tiny little pumpkin. Get to Halloween or Samhain or All Saints Day, which is the 3rd harvest. So first harvest is when the fields are first ready to reap and bring in the grain in that particular part of the world, at least. And then Maven, the 2nd harvest, is the right time for picking berries. That's when the berries and the apples come in, and the blackberries. And then Samhain, or 3rd harvest, or All Saints Day, is when everything's in, and what's left is the chaff in the fields. And in some cultures, it's often a time of burning the fields. Like, take everything down into the earth. So this moment of recognizing the moment of death or ending, to return all those resources into the earth for rebirth. And then we get to winter solstice, which in like the northern pagan cultures was celebrated as Yule. The Danish word for that is still Yule. Of course, on the Christian calendar, we have this as the celebration of Christmas. And Christmas marks the birth of Jesus when it does, we think, because in the Roman Empire, this is when the Romans were celebrating a gift-giving holiday called Saturnalia. So you guys may or may not be familiar with this history, but you have many examples on the wheel of where humans, wherever they were, however they were celebrating these holidays, and religions, as they progressed through time, adjusted the calendar to fit what people were already doing, make it easier to celebrate together. Okay, so we come to this moment of Imbolc, February 1st, the middle point between winter solstice and spring. I saw something yesterday that says, congratulations, you have made it through the 10 darkest weeks of the year. And, you know, some of the trees in Statesboro were already blooming this week, and the leaves of the daffodils are poking out, and we can still have weather like this. This is also, in many cultures, a day like Groundhog Day, when we make a guess about how much winter we will continue to have. But like I said, it's a holiday of hope. This picture is supposed to be a seed under the earth, a magical seed under the earth, because it's this moment when the growth has been happening in the earth in winter, but we could not see it, right? When we look at the winter world around us, it looks like we see stillness and bare trees, but if we could see what was actually happening under the earth, it's in the unseen, it's in the mystery, but it's so powerful. It's this gathering of energy and nutrition to get ready to burst forth in spring and summer. And that takes us to the holiday of Imbolc. Imbolc is celebrated in Ireland. It's a national holiday. I think they pronounce it without the B, so they say Imbolc, that sort of thing. But I'm not a Gaelic speaker, so I'm just guessing at that. That's what I hear. And in Irish, the word Imbolc literally means, well, there's some dispute. But a lot of people believe the origin of it comes from root words that mean in the belly, which makes a lot of sense, right? Because if you think about the seed in the earth, where all the magic of putting things together and gathering in force is happening unseen, so you might not even notice, but soon in spring it'll pop through. It's sort of like the early days of a pregnancy, right? Where so much is happening there, it's mind-boggling, but from the outside, someone may have no idea what's going on, where the magic is happening in the mystery. So the other possible meanings of the word Imbolc have to do with milk, because in Irish tradition, this is the version I'm sharing with you is an Irish holiday, this time of year was when the lambs would start having calves. And so there's that theme of rebirth, but also families might have had a lamb but not a cow. Lambs, sheep were a lot easier to keep than cows. So it was the first time after a hard winter that you get fresh milk, because when the lambs have their babies, or rather the ewes have their lambs, lambing season, there's milk again. You can imagine, like, as you get through winter, the cheese is dwindling, the butter is dwindling, and then you come to February and, you get fresh cream again. All right, let me flip ahead a little bit here. So what do we know about Brigid? Well, you heard the story of St. Brigid of Kildare, who lived 451 to 520, who is the mother saint of Ireland, they say. Part of this story about Brigid's cloak spreading out over the land, another detail of that is to imagine Brigid's cloak as the rolling green hills. That Brigid is the fire that brings the spring, that turns the hills green again, that brings green back to the earth as it spreads across the land. But we have good evidence that before there was St. Brigid of Kildare, that the people who were living in Ireland were celebrating a goddess named Brigid, or sometimes in Irish the name is pronounced Brigid, or Brigid instead of Brigid. And Brigid sometimes was represented as having 3 forms. I wanted to share with you a shape here. This is what slideshows looked like before we had projectors and computers. So this is a triskelion. So the 3 spirals. This is often associated with, say, goddess deities who come in 3 forms: maiden, mother, and crone, or the cycles of the seasons, the cycles of life. And we think it's a tradition today still to leave what we call a Brigid's cross for St. Brigid's Day and hang it on your wall or put it out your door. This is one I made in RE with the kids a few years ago. And you'll notice it's got 4 spokes, because once Brigid became St. Brigid in the Catholic Church, this became a cross. There's a story of her weaving a cross as she was helping someone who was very sick. But we think originally it may have looked more like this. You can weave your Brigid's crosses with 3 legs instead of 4 as well, or 7 or 8, whatever you feel like. Give it as many legs as you want. So the goddess Brigid, like I said, is often represented as having 3 forms. There's Brigid, who is the one adored by the poets. So this idea of like the fiery inspiration of the poets and beauty and wisdom. There is Brigid the healer, and Brigid is associated with many sacred wells. I looked last night, I Googled, like, where are the sacred wells of Brigid? And Google gave me like a list of 10 different sites in Ireland. So there are many, many Brigid's wells that are supposed to have healing waters. And then there is Brigid of the forge, or Brigid of the smith. I don't know how much time you guys have spent thinking about, pre-industrial life and the importance of the blacksmith in the village. But the idea that the fire could get so hot that it could bend and shape metal and help give us these things that we need. And so Brigid is associated with fire there as well. So there was this worship of the goddess Brigid before the Christianization of Ireland. Then we have the story of St. Brigid of Kildare, who lived 451 to 520, I think, if I'm remembering correctly. And then she was made a saint of the Catholic Church. And in 1969, the Pope took her off the list of saints because he said there's not enough evidence that she was actually a real person. So, but she's still revered as a saint in the Catholic Irish Church and in the Church of England and in the Episcopal Church. Okay. There are 3 themes we're going to think about today. The first theme of St. Brigid's Day, as we celebrate it today ourselves, but also as it's celebrated in Ireland, is a theme of cleansing. Because, at the end of winter, if you've been cooped up inside all this time, it's a time of year when people are asked to craft new brooms. Get yourself a new broom. And so I brought crafts for us to do afterwards if anybody wants to have fun with that with me. So I made an example yesterday. This is pine straw that my husband and I picked up off the ground at Magnolia Springs several weeks ago. The wind had just knocked it down. So it's typical to craft a new broom as the symbol of sweep everything out. Anything that's left over from winter, throw the windows open, sweep everything out, and let's get a fresh, clean start, because we got to prepare because some big new growth is coming when spring gets here. And then the second theme is the theme of healing. I mentioned too that Brigid is associated with healing waters of sacred wells. There's a story of Brigid washing a piece of cloth in some water and the cloth magically turning white. So a tradition that people continue today is on the night before St. Brigid's Day, they'll hang cloth in the trees outside of the house for Brigid to bless as she comes through in the night, and then keep that cloth for healing purposes for the year. And then we have the theme of fire. I also brought some candles that you can decorate however you want. I have dripped different colored wax on this one. And we've got some yarn for decorating. We could splash it with some salt water. So the theme of fire. We've got the sun returning, the light returning, the heat, that kind of fire. We've got fire as purification, fire as inspiration, but also fire as fertility for the new life that's coming. And I wanted to share with you, there was a perpetual flame, like an everlasting flame lit for Brigid at that church in Kildare that was burning, we think, for 1,000 years. It burned from 525 until 1540, when there was some religious persecution and it was put out. And apparently in Kildare it was relit in 1993. So you can go back and see it. And then we've got the holiday of Candlemas, however you pronounce that, Candlemas, which is traditionally celebrated on February 2nd. In a pre-electrical world, this would have been the day for the church to bless the newly made candles for the coming year. Hopefully they don't burn the house down, right? Because you needed a lot of protection from fire in our pre-modern world. The Christian story that goes along with this is that Brigid walks in front of Mary with candles to light the way, and this is celebrated on February 2nd for Epiphany to mark the 40-day point after Jesus was born, when Joseph and Mary presented him at the temple. So there's this association of Jesus as the light of the world and the light of spring returning. Okay. So back to where we find ourselves in this moment where the weather doesn't know. Is it winter? Is it spring? And we hope, we have faith that spring is coming. And when life in the world is very hard and difficult, we have hope that things will improve and a better day is coming. What I'd like to do now is enter into ritual with you. And everybody should have a writing utensil and some paper. So I'd like you to have 3 pieces of paper. So anybody, here's paper, here's some writing utensils. I'll just give some explanation while we get some materials. So we're going to work with themes of cleansing, themes of healing, and a theme of dreaming to mark this day. Now, if you guys have been here for ingathering, you have heard people call the directions. And I'm going to call the directions, so while we're getting settled here, I'll just give you a little explanation of what that means. Again, you may have come across this in earth-based traditions or pagan traditions, but it doesn't have to be tied to any particular set of religious beliefs. And you are welcome to take this as literally, figuratively, symbolically as you like. The way I like to think about it is we're going to go around the circle and then above and below and envision surrounding ourselves as set apart for a moment, protected and loved from all directions, so that we feel safe to create this sacred space to signal to ourselves, what I'm doing for myself right now is really important. This really matters to me, right? So I'm going to ask you to write some things which engages that part of your brain that thinks, oh, if I write it down, I really have to integrate it. This is really real. This is really serious. Right? We can be playful too. But you'll write it down to signal that to you. We'll call the directions to signal to you. This is a safe space where you can focus on what matters most to you. And then we'll also make some noises and move around a little bit to integrate this into our bodies too. Okay. Does everybody have paper and pen? All right, so I invite you to rise as you are able or willing in body or spirit, and we will turn and call the directions again just to create this sense of sacred space set apart for us. So if you'll stand up. I used my compass before the service to know which was which. So we're going to begin by facing east. We're going to go east, south, west, north. So, guides and guardians of the east, an element of air, energy of new beginnings, the sunrise in the morning, the season of spring. Please hold this sacred space for us. Turn to the south. Guides and guardians of the south, element of fire, energies of the midday sun and the heat and full bloom of summer. Please hold this space for us. Now we turn to the west. Guides and guardians of the west, element of water, energies of the sunset at the end of the day and the harvest season of autumn. Please hold this sacred space for us. Now we turn to the north. Guides and guardians of the north, element of earth, energies of the dark of night and the dark and stillness of winter. Please hold this space for us. Now if you'll face the center. We'll go above and then below. Guides and guardians of the above, higher consciousness, higher self, source of light and love. Please hold this sacred space for us. And now below. Guides and guardians of the realm below, Mother Earth, Gaia. Please hold this sacred space for us. And have a seat. On your first piece of paper, I'd like you to take a moment and think about what has become stagnant and left over from winter that is no longer needed. What do you want to cleanse out of your system so that you are fresh and clean and ready with lots of empty open space for spring? So on your first piece of paper, write, what do you need to cleanse? So instead of having a fire pit outside, I have made a fire pit bowl for you. And if you want to release this into this fire, when we are finished, I'm going to tie it closed with a piece of string, and I promise I will burn it on my own fire pit as soon as I get home today. If you would like to keep it, that's fine too. But if you would like to release this into the fire, I'm going to walk through the middle, and maybe we can pass them in, and then we will do something to cleanse. I promise I'm not reading. So if you imagine this new broom up here, here's what I want you to do with your body. Okay, here's our new little hand broom. Imagine whatever kind of broom you want and have that broom in your hand. And I want you to take a minute and just dust yourself off. You can be as gentle or as strong or as rough as you want. Depends on how dusty you feel. So we're just gonna dust ourselves off. Just woo! Get that off there. Woo! Okay, top to bottom. And stomp it off the ground. Okay, shaking it all out. Anybody want to shake with me? We're gonna shake it all out. Woo! Okay, let's take a deep breath. And now we are fresh and clean with open space for new growth and in spring. Okay. Next, I invite you to think about the healing waters of Brigid's Well. Because one of the themes of winter is rest and rejuvenation. In our pre-industrial society and an agricultural time, winter would be for pulling inside, resting from all of that really hard labor, letting your muscles heal, rubbing in some salve, getting your energy back. And so before we leave winter behind, is there anything else in your mind or your body or your soul or your heart that needs some healing? Is there anywhere that wants some comfort? And where would you like to send healing comfort? And when you're ready, if you would like to drop that into the fire. So I'll start back here. All right, so I want you to imagine what the best type of healing water would be for you. Is it a bath? Is it a thermal spring? Is it a hot tub? Is it a waterfall? Close your eyes if you like and just imagine for a minute what that healing water would be for you. And now try to imagine it swirling around your body. Send those healing waters wherever you need them. Let's make some gentle water sounds. You can make gentle water sounds. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. And we take a deep breath to let that healing and comfort settle in. And finally, we come to the theme of dreaming, because this is the season in the belly. This is the season for growing something new that we're hoping for so much. And we might not see it yet, but this is what we're hoping, what we want to gather energy for, that could blossom in spring and be in full bloom in summer. So I invite you to write down, what is something you are growing in your belly? Where do we want to send that fertility to that seed for the coming year? No rush, whenever you're ready. Anybody else there? All right. I don't know how many of you saw Samara's presentation last Sunday, but they presented a meditation or a poem, chant, I don't know what we call it, that meant so much to me, that said, hope will live again, peace will live again, love will live again. And I was like, yeah, we gotta focus on what's coming. on what's possible. So I invite you now, think about that dream that you are sending so much love and hope and fertility into. And I want you to imagine, you can close your eyes if you want to, imagine what it would actually feel like to see that come true. If it really comes true, how would you feel? And now I invite us to hoop and holler. Those things really come true. What sound are you going to make? Woo! Oh, come on, you guys. Let's do it. Don't make me do the other one. That's right. Let peace and love and joy reign again. Oh, my goodness. Like, woo! Okay. All right. So I promise I will tie this up as soon as we're finished and put it on my fire when I get home. Oh, we need our breath. Let's take a deep breath to let that excitement take root deep in our bellies. Give it some fire. All right. Over these offerings you have shared, I read to you something from the Brigid sisters. This is the order of St. Brigid that they call St. Brigid's Psalm. Brigid, you were a woman of peace. You brought harmony where there was conflict. You brought light to the darkness. You brought hope to the downcast. May the mantle of your peace cover those who are troubled and anxious, and may peace be firmly rooted in our hearts and in our world. So. Okay, so we created this dome of sacred space to signal to ourselves that we were doing something that matters very much to us. So now we're going to release those directions and ground our energy back in the here and now so we can get ready to go back into the everyday. So to the realm below and the earth, realm above, higher consciousness, higher self, spirit source, to, where's north? To the north and the element of earth, west and the element of water, south and the element of fire, and east and the element of air. Thank you for holding this sacred space for us. So now there's a song that Mo and I would like to share with you in closing. So Mo and I will sing it through one time. The lyrics are very, very simple. And then we would like for you to join in so that all together we're singing it 3 times. So the first time will be me and Mo. Second time, all of us, you'll learn it. By the 3rd time, we've all got it. Right? The words are, may the light of love shine on you. May you know how loved you are. May the light of love shine on you. May you know how loved you are.
Now is the time that we share our pledges and our gifts to support the work of our community. These gifts are received and appreciated, as is the gift of music. Now is the time in our service when we share joys or concerns. If there's something on your heart you'd like to share this morning, I invite you to come and do so. Light a candle or place a stone in the water in token of your concern. If you will, speak your name when you share. And being reminded that we are being broadcast live. I think we all know now that we do this to share with folks who are not here with us. If there's something that you're not comfortable speaking and having go out over the internet, over Facebook and later YouTube, feel free to speak with me or Mike afterwards, or reach out to Reverend Simone.
My grandfather is on his deathbed right now, so that's been pretty hard. So that's a concern. My name is Beth.
So I know that there's been a lot of attention about the murder that happened yesterday in Minneapolis, and great concern about that, and also the people who are also not in the media but are also suffering because of ICE. But I also want to say enjoy that Mr. Rogers said that his mom told him that in times of crisis look for the helpers, and I couldn't help but notice in the news that there was a picture of a row of clergy in prayer on their knees who were one by one being taken by ICE. So our helpers are here. Our helpers are here. So I think there's joy for that.
And a lot of them were Unitarian ministers. If you haven't seen the footage from Minnesota, please go look it up. There was a large contingent of specifically Unitarian ministers that traveled to Minnesota specifically to protest there, and they are all there, and they are all wearing their Unitarian skulls, and they are standing arm in arm, and they are singing Unitarian hymns, and we were extraordinarily well represented on the ground in Minnesota by our ministers from all across the country, and it is amazing footage to watch, and it made me so proud of our faith community and our ministerial community to watch that. So if you haven't seen it, go look it up on the internet. It is not violent at all. It was a wonderful, peaceful moment of protest to see all of our ministers there, arm in arm, singing in Minnesota on the ground on Saturday, I believe. So.
I very rarely pull stones, but I am going to my final trial for my divorce. It's been 4 years. I'm ready for it to be done for the greatest good of everyone involved. So there is that. And then I am so joyful that I get to be here celebrating divinity with all of you.
My name's Noelle. Holly. I want to kind of second all the atrocities that are happening because of the continuous inhumane frame of mind going on in our country, especially for the people that are being bold and brave to stand up to it and sometimes paying with their lives. So I want to second that. But then I also want to it makes I feel like what I'm going through insignificant, but I almost didn't make it through this week, and I am processing that and appreciate again more vibes and love.
I'm John. I have joy and a concern, kind of all rolled into one. I'm currently fostering Luna, who is an American Staffordshire Terrier, about 3 or 4 years old. She is very friendly with both people and dogs, and she met a cat the other day, and she was not aggressive at all. And she never barks inside. She is potty trained. She is very well behaved, crate trained. Would make a wonderful pet for someone. She's also chipped. There is one person who is possibly interested in taking her, but if not, I would keep her myself, but I don't have the time to take care of her. If she could be outside in the fenced area or something with other dogs, she would be delighted. If anyone's interested, just talk to me after the service, and I've actually got her here with me today if you want to meet her, and that's all.
Every one of us matters. Every one of us matters. My struggle is accepting, getting away from the judgment, remembering that those ice agents, everyone matters. Everyone is a divine soul. And I'm so appreciative of our UU clergy, our UUA president, Reverend Sophia Bettencourt is in Minnesota, published a beautiful prayer. We're called to love. War's not the answer. We are called to love, and I'm so proud and encouraged. So many people seem to know that and to be trying to do it, and I'm just blown away that they can travel there or live there and do it in 0-degree temperatures. I mean, seriously, that is real resolve. And I'm grateful for that service. I think it is so important to come together, to remember we love one another, to have these opportunities to be grounded and be reminded to love right now and to look ahead. Hope comes, hope returns, love wins. May we continue to remember that, to hold that, and to hold it out for one another. May it be so. We'll make that the closing prayer. We're running a little over, and we do want to have time to do some crafts after you get your coffee and come back in. So shall we do Spirit of Life, or shall we do the closing number recorded, or Spirit of Life? Let's, as you're able and willing, let's rise and sing together. Spirit of Life.
Oh, in the wind.
words as I extinguish the flame.
We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together in Him.
Have a seat. Announcements? Yes, Fred.
Yeah, we have the migrant meeting is over at Trinity at 6 p.m. Tonight. If you want to do something to push back against ICE, and then our friend Madeline Ryan Smith just announced, I put it on our page, rally at the Rotunda 12 to 3 on Wednesday to protest ICE, and that you do these things locally if you want.
On campus. It's outside of the student union.
And I also wanted to say, at tonight's migrant support meeting, Captain Easton from the Village County Sheriff's Office will be attending the meeting, the first part of the meeting, so that we can talk about what they do, what we do, how we can all be more gentle and careful with each other. So I'm very glad that he's coming. It's been a bit of a debate amongst all of us about his attendance, but he'll come, we'll talk, and then he will leave and we will talk. So thank you.
Tell me the time again.
Is it 6?
6, that's your Trinity, right? Potluck or just the meeting?
With that?
Potluck or just a meeting?
Just tonight.
Just a meeting. Other announcements?
The welcoming renewal committee that needs a shorter name is meeting after service, after we're all done with whatever Beth's doing. So if you are on the committee or would like to join the committee, we are meeting in the library after snacks and afterthought practice, whatever we're doing with Beth. So thank you.
We will note that we did celebrate MLK despite the cold for Georgia weather. 9 of us marched and carried the banners and said the dream continues, and we're helping to make that happen. The pictures are very.
So that you know what is available. I have supplies for making little brooms, and I have candles to decorate, and pipe cleaners if you want to leave a Brigid's cross.
So how about if we get a couple of folks to bring in tables, and this is in lieu of or during our talk back afterthoughts. You can come and share reactions or thoughts about our topic this morning, and if you like, do a little craft at the same time. So we'll get a couple of folks to bring in a table and set it right here. Thanks Mary and John for refreshments. I think we have coffee and some dogs. Sorry, I saw you in there, so I see. I'm sorry, you brought refreshments today? Martha, thank you, Martha. Sorry.
You're Martha, it doesn't matter.
Thank you, Martha. So we are dismissed, and we will go and have coffee, and then come back and make craft if you will. And do lean on one another. That's why our spiritual community, one of our purposes.